It's Karen from PortPrep, and we're here at Necessary Arts starting our animation portfolio summer camp. And I'm here with Garth Laidlaw and a bunch of other students that have come from far and wide to learn about character design and all the drawing skills we need to be able to draw really well for animation. So Garth is going to start us off tonight with some information about, what do you say, Garth, over there? We're going to turn to him soon. He's going to teach us about character design, sort of basics and storyboarding kind of ideas. So let's get him going.
All right. Yeah, I'll do that. No one needs to see me. Entire screen, yeah. Okay. So I was going to talk about my story first.
Okay, so if you're talking, you want to go back to your view. So.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You go back to your camera.
Okay. Okay. So let's see. I have it here in case you guys want to follow along. So my story is that I began. I'm just going to sort of read this, and I have some work along the way that I can show you as I get to it. But I began my career of drawing very early when I was in kindergarten, in the form generally of dinosaur drawings they later changed to more violent action scenes once I started playing video games. And when I was young, I was mostly inspired by whatever media I could get my hands on, such as Alien, Predator, or the very old video game now called Doom. As I navigated through all the various odd art courses throughout middle and high school, I gradually became aware of some of the different options for those that are hoping to pursue art professionally. This was very odd to me because art and professional used to be very disconnected for me. It seemed like more of a hobby that had just migrated from the Renaissance. In grade 11, my parents read an article about Sheridan College's great animation program where the artists I heard were picked up by Pixar, Disney, and DreamWorks straight from graduation. It sounded really good. So it seemed really too good to be true. But another deciding factor for me was seeing how my grades in English, math, and sciences were, because they were always sort of subpar compared to the top class, whereas in art I was always getting in the 90+ range. So I did a year at the Sheridan's Art Fundamentals program that we called Fundies, perhaps appropriately so, because it was a nice, somewhat simple way to get a foot in the door of Sheridan to see what kind of work the other higher tier art programs were creating, like animation and illustration. I was in a much bigger pool of fish than the high school art classes I had previously been in, and it was a pretty intimidating place to be. However, I managed to submit a portfolio to animation and scrape by getting basically the passing grade, which I remember exactly being 2.97 out of 4. Every piece of artwork you submit is graded out of 4, and the passing grade is dictated by all those others that are submitting. So, for example, if you're submitting in a particularly good, really skilled year, that average is going to be of those really good people. So it's a bit of a, you never know what kind of year you're going to be in. And there's 100. I think this is still fairly current, but generally at Sheridan when I was there's 120 spots in the program, and about 2,000, which I think is even more now. So the highest of the 2,000 applicants get in, while the rest often end up taking another year of Fundies or a second year of Fundies called VCA or Visual and Creative Arts. So this little, yeah, I'll switch back. Yep. So this is a. This is a little still life that I did at when I got into animation, actually, because we still did some traditional art courses while I was in animation, even though it's generally, it leans away from that in the later years. But this was a very early still life that I did, and there's some more drawings actually I could show too. These are my first life drawings. Yeah, that'd be great, Karen. Thanks. So these are my first life drawings that I submitted. Because in life drawing at Sheridan, you have to submit regularly to in figure drawing class every quarter. You basically have a big portfolio assignment, and so these were some of the first ones that I did. They're very quick. So this is I actually labeled how long they were at the bottom. So this is a 30-second pose. So I couldn't get a lot of detail, and then there's a lot of really odd things going on here, but this is sort of enough information to communicate what the model was doing. This is another 30-second, again, very, very quickly. I'm just getting the bare bones of what's happening. This is a 1 minute, so slightly longer, a little bit more detail. The head's a little bit more defined. The musculature is sort of getting there, even though it's still very loose. Another 1 minute. As you can see by the leg that's sort of closest to you, we drew very spherically. There would always be various spheres and ovals to help define the forms. And this was just really for the sake of speed, because we didn't have enough time, and there is some method to the madness. So the reason that we do such quick life drawing at Sheridan is because as an animator, you have to be able to mock up a character's pose really quickly to experiment and see and push them and see what they're able to do and what they're not able to do, and still sort of maintaining their personality in that pose. So these, yeah, you develop some really great skills as well from having to draw really quickly that it was hard to see at the time, because when you're in it, it's just extremely frustrating because you have to do so much in such a little amount of time. But there is, after having gone through it all, I understand. I get why it's necessary. This is a 2 minute pose. A little bit more going on here, a little bit more of the direction in the midline of what's happening with the belly button, which is a nice indicator of the middle. Another 2 minute pose, again, more detail, it's a little bit more refined. 3 minute pose, a little bit more. 3 minute, 5 minutes. So here I'm actually getting some darker lines in some areas, so suggesting a bit more of a sense of gravity, as if this person actually is existing in our world and being pulled by the forces of gravity. And this was, I did quite well on this one. This was a fairly highly marked. The musculature is really getting there. Things are generally in proportion, although some places are still a little odd. But it's sort of enough information to really understand what this character is doing, which is the whole goal of it. And these were longer. And so I also had, I sort of brought the first of each assignment, basically. So this is a layout assignment. This was actually in second year, so it wasn't exactly the first assignment that I did for layout. But we basically had to do a background, and I was really into science fiction. I still am, sort of. And so we do this pencil drawing first. You can't see too much detail, but it's quite far away anyways. It's a very big scope sort of landscape of these strange pillar-like buildings. And then my painting this is the finished painting. And we began painting in gouache, which is sort of a mixture of watercolor and acrylic. And it's actually become almost my favorite medium. So I really enjoy gouache, but this was very early days, so there's a lot of things that, as I look back now, I would change a lot, but that's sort of the natural process of the artist. Let's see, what else is there? There is the first character. No, this is actually, again, second year. I think I got rid of the first character designs I did just because they were so awful and I couldn't stand to have them on my blog representing my artwork. So this was this was a Scottish owl. So we had to do a character rotation, some expressions. And this was another character, a rhino. He's a very different shape. Again, I was playing with different shapes. He's more of like an oval, whereas the rhino is more of like a square, more blocky. And yeah, lots of weird things going on here. But again, it's quite old now, so it's funny to look back on. But so that was some of the things that I was doing in my early days. So once I'll just switch the screen share back. Since I began at the bottom of the animation program, meaning that I sort of just got in, I really felt that I needed to learn as fast as I could to catch up to the others who scored sometimes perfect on the portfolio test, which was, I couldn't even imagine. So throughout my time at Sheridan, I learned how important it was to be open-minded to pushing my artistic creativity in new ways, which is something that we're going to talk about more in this class, especially those that felt uncomfortable to how I naturally like to draw. For example, when I first went into Sheridan, I was a very realistic drawer. I drew lots of portraits and paintings and things in high school that were very representational. But when I got there, we suddenly had to draw, to me, what was cartoons. And that, I don't know how natural that comes to you guys, but cartooning was very, very different. It's a whole different thing because it's more about sort of the appeal of the character and how readable they are, if it's clear what they're doing or if it's confusing. And that was just a whole different ballgame for me. So this, among many other valuable lessons, were critical to learn before entering the real world of art. When I graduated, I wanted to try something different than applying to animation studios, as I mentioned earlier, so I created my own business called Art Story. This is what I'm still working on now, and it's sort of growing as I am growing as an artist, which is sort of a nice evolution. I describe the process as gradually cutting away the parts of art that I don't enjoy, which is nice, and that's one of the benefits to making your own entrepreneurial business versus working in a studio, because you have the freedom to experiment and see what works and what doesn't. That's a little bit harder to test in a studio structure because you have deadlines that are very soon, and you have to just produce and produce and produce, and you don't have too much time to really think about why you're doing it or what parts of it you like the best. So there's sort of less you can do to change the structure of it. Another positive of running my own business is that I regularly remind myself of the potential of the long-term career sustainability and skills that I learn simply by pursuing interesting projects that I enjoy and setting personal goals that I can implement really quickly and test out to see if they're effective or not. As I mentioned, my current goals are to produce a children's book and to produce art for a fantasy board game, and in the process to gradually build my drawing and painting portfolio. And you'll find that as you guys get better, you'll be the better drawings that you're creating, they can be part of your portfolio, because eventually, I mean, you're in the process of creating a portfolio to get into college now, but even after you get in, you're then creating your portfolio for the next stage once you're out of college and you're applying to the bigger studios or whatever else you want to do. You're always sort of creating a portfolio. So sort of have that thought in the back of your mind, because everything that you're creating could potentially be improved or upgraded in some way and then used in something. Even a simple life drawing can inform the whole pose of a character that you've designed. So don't discount anything that you do. Yeah, so for me, my goal is to sort of write and illustrate my own stories, and that's what I'm most passionate about. I want to create my own work as opposed to creating the work of others, even though it's very good, especially at the big studios. But I'm just I don't know, I'm stubborn, I guess. And this is a painting that I did recently. I do a lot of personal artwork as well. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, let's see, where is this? Oop. Yeah, so this is one of my recent paintings that I did. That again, there's aspects of storytelling in this. I try to weave storytelling into every piece of artwork that I do, and a little bit of character design and background design, and it's definitely more abstract, but you know, it's nice to push yourself in new artistic directions, even if you are in a fairly strict discipline like animation. I think you can always bring new things to it, and also that even for the big studios, you'll notice that from film to film that they output, they have very similar styles, and so I think eventually they're really going to have to start trying new things. They're going to have to push the boundaries of the medium to see what they can do, because that's sort of the natural process of every art medium. Painters used to paint very representationally, then people like Picasso came along and they changed the entire medium. So animation, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes through a similar natural evolution. So it's always good to just sort of push yourself to try new things. So that's sort of my story. That's everything that I want to share with that. I'll just stop screen sharing here. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to do an exercise. That's really fun. It has to do with. Yeah, I think so.